Friends, today we have with us Charishma Kaliyanda, who is a councillor from the Liverpool City Council in Sydney, one of the suburbs of Sydney. Charishma, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Karishma, let me begin by asking, tell us something about your background. You migrated here, you were born in Australia, in India, and then you migrated here in your 90s. So tell us how it was growing up in Australia.
Sure. So as you just mentioned, I was born in Bangalore in India and migrated to Australia with my family when I was quite young. And so, obviously having, parents who were quite involved in the local Indian community, we were very lucky that we had a lot of influences in terms of dance, in terms of film, in terms of, other things to help keep us connected and engaged with Indian culture. But obviously going to school here, playing sport, all of those things meant that we were very Australian in terms of our upbringing as well. And so I guess, as you can imagine, like a lot of young people growing up these days, we had very much, two cultures in our upbringing.
That's nice. It's always, I think, great to have a mix of cultures when you're growing up. Karishma, what made you get into politics? Because we don't see a lot of people from the Indian Australian community here, although we are doing so well in so many other fields. But this is one area where you don't see a lot of Indian Australians going into politics. So, how did you decide to go into this field?
I think it started at university where I was complaining about something one day, and one of my classmates said, that's nice. I kind of appreciate what you're saying, but what will you do about it? What are you going to do about it? And I think that's a question that has stayed with me for the entirety of my professional life, not just my political life, but a few years after that, I was complaining about issues in my local area, and my local member of parliament said, well, council elections are coming up. Why don't you consider running for council? And I thought, okay, you know what? I would like to be part of the solution and not just identify what the problems are. So I think it's that sort of it's that sort of mindset that's really affected my decision to go into politics and be part of the decision-making structures of our community.
And do you think that it's actually important for the community to get more involved in politics at the state level, or even at the council level, or in federal politics? Do you see that it would be better for the community to get more engaged in politics here?
Definitely. I think as members of our broader community, despite the fact that not everyone may have an interest in some of the stereotypes that come with politics and being involved in politics, and some people might say, well, I have no interest in politics. The fact is, politics is interested in everyone, and politics affects everyone's life. And so my way of thinking about it is it's better to actually have a say, and it's better to actually participate in something that's going to affect you regardless of your involvement.
Yeah. And coming to the community again, how important a role do you think the Indian Australian community has played in multicultural Australia?
I think the recent census statistics speak for themselves, where India is now the third largest country of origin for people within the Australian community. And that just demonstrates, how strong the ties are between India and Australia. But I think the fact is, Indians have been migrating to Australia, since the 1800s. So it's although the number of people of Indian heritage has increased within our community, definitely within the last 25 to 30 years, Indians have a long and very rich history of migration and of presence here in Australia.
Yeah, and If one is talking about India Australia ties, um, how important role do you think the community has actually played in bettering those ties between the two countries, and how important is the community's role going to be even going forward, given the strategic and the geopolitical importance attached to this alliance?
Sure. Look, I think the relationship is nothing without the people, and the people form the fundamental bedrock of the relationship between the two countries. And we can talk about the commonalities of the relationship in terms of a shared colonial history, interest in cricket, a whole range of different. You know, different factors that go into the Australia-India relationships. But without the people, without the community here in Australia advocating for those ties to be built with India, and likewise without Australians who are in India advocating for a strengthening of the relationship with Australia, the relationship would not be where it is today. And I think something that I'm quite proud of is to see, what many years ago was laughingly called, the cricket curry, and it just characterized as being about cricket and curry, is now about so much more. It's about trade, it's about economics, and it's about how both countries can move forward in partnership and progress together.
Yeah, and how easy or difficult has it been for you as a person of Indian origin to make your mark in politics here?
Look, I can't necessarily compare my experience because all I know is my experience. And so
Sure.
I can't sort of, say relative to others, it's been easier or harder or whatnot. But I know that, the roots that I have within the Indian community, the cultural references, all of those sorts of things have been a real advantage, or I see them as a real advantage in terms of helping me understand, at a very grassroots level, what our community needs, and how to better negotiate that relationship within our community. So I think there are challenges for anyone that doesn't necessarily fit the mold, and I think being able to kind of use my cultural heritage and being able to use the lessons that were taught to me by my parents in helping sort of better support our community is something that I'm quite proud of.
Yeah. And last question, Karishma, that do you see that there's been a change in the way India and people of Indian origin are perceived in Australia over the years? Do you see a shift there?
Yes, I definitely do. I reflect back on, when my family first migrated here in the 90s, and it would be unheard of for a large mainstream organization to be celebrating Diwali or Holi, or celebrating the cultural diversity within our community. And just earlier this year, I was saying that in the space of a weekend, I attended about 5 or 6 Holi events, and so to see that shift in terms of the people within our community not only acknowledging and understanding more about Indian culture and traditions, but also joining us to celebrate them, I think is a real shift. The other real shift, as I mentioned before, is earlier many people knew of India as our opponent, Australia's opponents on the cricket field, or a country that was quite far away. But now we have a lot more in common when we look at things like our trade ties, when we look at building better economic relationships between the two countries, and we also look at building cultural relationships between the two countries as well. I've spoken to many people within the community who share my love of Bollywood movies and regional Indian movies, and I think over the last few years, things like streaming platforms, and obviously the ease with which we can access information and cultural references from all parts of the world have really contributed to breaking down the barriers and helping people move beyond the stereotypes of what life in India looks like, or what being an Indian might be. And so that, I feel, has really contributed to the shaping of a better understanding of what India is, and what it is like to have Indian heritage for many people within the broader Australian community.
Yeah. Charishma Kaliyanda, thank you so much for taking out time and joining us at the Australia today. And I'm sure we'll have many more interviews with you in the times to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pallavi. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to joining you again.